Today we are going to talk about time. Time is one of our most valuable assets that we can have. And here's the thing, y'all. You can always make more money, but you can't make more time. You can't make more time. And every single day that you live, there's less and less time that's left. You ever thought about that? Not trying to scare you, but it's real. And time is flying by. I mean, even in my own life, my own family, it seems like just yesterday, me and my wife were young, and we had little kids, and this was us. Look at our little kids. Like, oh, Diana was missing her tooth and everything. But now, it goes by so fast, right? And now my daughters are driving. Watch out, y'all, watch out. They driving now. And now this is us. Yeah. Time goes so quick, y'all. It goes so quick. Me and my wife this month, we celebrated being at Crossover Church in ministry 27 years. 27 years we've been here. And so we started in 1996. We first moved here, and we started the youth ministry. We were fresh out of Bible college, and we started bringing kids to church. We had this 1973 van that we called the Hoopty. And we would take the Hoopty out to the housing projects in the neighborhoods, and we would pick all the kids up, and we'd bring them to this Thursday night, youth service that had a DJ. We had a DJ starting in 1998. We were the first church in the world to do that. Right? We had the DJ, we had breakdancing, we built this basketball court, we had a skate park, and kids were coming to know Jesus. And it was just this amazing season. And then eventually, after about 6 years, I got pushed into being the lead pastor in 2002. And so, but last Sunday, there was a lady that came up to me after one of the services, and she had to be above 30 years old. And she was like, I used to come to this church when I was a teenager. I remember, it was in another location, right? This is the same Crossover, right? I'm like, yeah, you're the same. Yeah, I'm the same guy. Yep. So I've been here for a minute. And when you begin to see your kids grow up, it's some of you guys know my guy Anthony Brooks. Show that picture of Anthony Brooks. This is me and Anthony hanging out in the Crossover lobby. Where's Anthony at? And Anthony now, show Anthony. Where's Anthony? There he is. Anthony's 35 years old now. I started picking Anthony up in the Hoopty when he was 12. So man, time flies. Especially when you're doing stuff that you enjoy and stuff that you love, right? And so our theme for 2023, help me out again. What is it? It is rebrand. We're changing the narrative about the church. And the biblical definition of the church is not a building. It's not a place. It's a group of people that are together on a mission. But in the West, we kind of got it mixed up, and we just think church is a place we go and we sing, and it's great. We feel God's presence. God's presence was here a few minutes ago. We prayed for some people, right? It's awesome. All that great spiritual stuff happens, and then we leave it in that building, and we leave and we go out to our everyday lives, and then we act like everybody else. And that's the problem, y'all. That's why we need to rebrand. Because we're supposed to take Jesus with us. We're supposed to take this stuff that we've learned into our everyday lives. Listen, if you have a relationship with Jesus, guess what? You are the church. You're the church. Matt, you are the church. You are the church. Bob, you're the church. You're the church. My brother Simon from London, you are the church. You got a relationship with God. CJ, you are the church. You are the church. Josh, I am the church. We are the church. And so look at somebody and say, we got to do better. We got to do better. We got to represent, right? Yes, we get to gather in this amazing Toys R Us store. We worship, we learn, we grow together, we serve together. Amazing stuff happens. But what we do here is just to equip us for our everyday life. When we go out 24/7 and we're about all this stuff. So that's why last week we talked about rebranding. What did we talk about? Rebranding what? Work. Yeah, you was listening. Rebrand work. Because a lot of us, we ain't acting right at work. We could do better, right? If you missed it, go back and watch it on the YouTube channel, Crossover 813, right? We should be the best workers out there. If you own your company or you're an entrepreneur, you should be the best at what you do. Whatever the case is, we should be standing out because ultimately we're working for God and His purposes. We're not just working to get a paycheck. We're not just working for some money. So today, we're going to go a little bit deeper. Somebody say deeper. And we're going to keep talking about us because we are the church. Before we start talking about anybody else and what we're going to do with others, we're going to get to that. We're going to talk about justice next week and tie some stuff in, and that's something we really got to talk about with everything that's going on in the culture, in the country right now, right? But today we're going to talk about us a little bit more, and we're going to talk about time, how we manage our time, what we do with our time. 2 weeks ago on Vision Sunday, we talked about 5 main areas that we need to rebrand. So one of them was our rhythms with God. How many guys are doing the 21 days of prayer and fasting? Come on, make some noise. Yeah. If you didn't know about that or you didn't jump in yet, we got one more week. So you could still jump in. And on the website, it's got the details of what you can fast, what you can choose, all those things. There's different things that you can fast. Each week I'm doing a little bit more and a little bit more, right? And so every morning, 6:15, I know this is the 11:45 service, but at 6:15, Monday through Friday, this week we're doing a live on our Facebook, Crossover 813, and you can jump in with us, and I'm not a morning person either. And I've been getting up every morning, and I've been on that call and getting some new rhythms with God. So we're talking about rebranding our rhythms with God, rebranding our work, rebranding our character, rebranding our relationships. We're going to do a series we're going to start in a couple weeks about toxic relationships. It's going to be really good in the month of February, the month of love, right? And so we're going to talk about rebranding generosity this year as well. All the stuff that we talked about on Vision Sunday, it's in the seat back in front of you. So if you didn't see the brochure, there should be one of these. You could pull it out, look at it. It's got all the details. If you're worshiping online, this is on the website, crossoverchurch.org/rebrand. It's got all the details of the stuff that we are doing in 2023 to rebrand. And inside of most of these, there's a commitment card. And that commitment card has some commitments that a lot of people made, hundreds of people made 2 weeks ago. And some of you made them last week to say, hey, I'm going to start talking to God every day. I'm going to pray. I'm going to start reading His Word every day. I'm going to start working on my character. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to work on my generosity. I'm going to give more in 2023. In specific, we're doing a special rebrand offering on the last Sunday of March 26th. And our goal is to raise $123,000 in 2023. So we can do these initiatives as we do all this rebranding, everything that's in that brochure. It's a lot of stuff we're going to do. And so far, we've had 145 people that have actually made a commitment to give. So come on, give me a drum roll. We are up to $87,293 that has already been pledged towards that. So we're going to definitely reach that goal. There's way more than 145 people that are even in this service. Our last service had almost 400 people in it. It was like jam-packed, biggest service that we've had, I think, since we've been back from the pandemic in the building. So, I mean, look at what God's doing, man. It's awesome. So He's rebranding people. So if you guys could stand with me, and we're going to read our opening scripture today from the Bible, and we're going to pray over the rest of our time that we have together. And this is a simple proverb, but it's so profound. Proverbs chapter 14, verse 23, it says this. Just a few words, but it's solid. It says, work brings profit, but mere talk leads to poverty. Wow. Let me say that again for us. Work brings profit, but mere talk, we got a lot of people that talk, don't we? It leads to poverty. In a world where there's so many distractions, and there's so many people talking about this and that, what they're going to do and what they don't do, man, there's so many people that fail to do what they're called to do. And they miss their calling, they miss their purpose. But when you maximize your time and you partner with God, man, incredible things can happen. Supernatural things can happen. Miracles can happen. And that's what I want to equip us to do together today. So let's pray really quick. Let's talk to God. Father, we come before you today. We thank you for the time that we have today. This afternoon as we came to this service, whether we're in this room or we're tuned in from our room somewhere else or even watching this later on the replay, it's no accident that this time was slotted for us to hear this word. It's no accident that even just this week I switched up what we were going to talk about because you put this on my heart so heavily. And this is an area that so many of us struggle with. And if we're going to rebrand the church, rebrand ourselves, this is such a pivotal area. And so God, over these next few minutes, God, help us to use our time wisely and focus and listen and think about the ways that we can switch up and rebrand our time. God, use me and use this time. In Jesus' name, everyone said, amen. Give somebody a fist bump before you're seated and tell them rebrand your time. Go ahead and type that in the chat. Rebrand your time. Listen, on any given day, all of us have the same exact amount of time that's ticking. It's ticking. It's ticking. Doesn't matter how old you are, how young you are, how much money you have, how many assets you have. Everybody gets the same amount of time every day. Time is a fixed commodity, and all of us are managing a growing list of demands many times with a limited amount of time, a limited asset. Time doesn't grow. Again, money can grow, but time can't grow. It can't expand. Yes, maybe you can hire some people to do some things to save you some time, but ultimately at the end of the day, the clock is still ticking. It's ticking and time is going by. So for the next couple of minutes, I want to take you guys like through a master class so you can rebrand your time, so you guys can do better with your time. And so I regularly have so many people ask me, Pastor Tommy, how do you have time to do everything that you do? You pastor a pretty big church, you're an author, you travel, you're involved in the community, you're married and your wife still likes you, and you have kids, and like how do you juggle all the stuff that you do? It's not always easy, but I can say this, I've rebranded my time. I'm a very disciplined person. I'm intentional with my schedule. I have priorities. I don't have it all figured out. I'm not perfect. I'm always tweaking and adjusting things, right? But man, I've worked on that and I've been doing this for a while, 27 years. So hopefully when you're doing something for a while, you keep getting better at it. You keep growing at it. And that's what I'm always striving to do as a pastor, as a leader, as a husband, a father, a mentor, a coach. I'm always trying to get better at what I do. And so I'm always trying to read and watch webinars and go to workshops. And I have a couple of coaches in my life right now, and I'm just absorbing this. I'm going into what I believe is going to be the best season of my life, where I'm going to be the most productive in the next decade or so. So I don't want to miss any of that time. I want to maximize it. So I recently read this book that's called At Your Best. And this is what we're going to get a little master class on today. At Your Best is by a guy named Carey Nieuwhof. And Carey Nieuwhof was a pastor for many years. Then he started a podcast that just became wildly successful. And he became an author, New York Times bestseller. Didn't, I think, write his first book until he was about 45. But God, over the last decade or so, has really just used this guy to touch so many different people. And I've been listening to his podcasts and reading some of his books. And a couple of weeks ago, I got to meet him in person and actually sit down and have lunch with him and a few other leaders in Orlando. And so this book has been a blessing to me. And I know that today, it's going to help us. It's helped me intentionally rebrand my time and get even better. How many of y'all want to win with your time? This is an area we all feel like we don't have enough of, right? So here's what I want to tell you to do. Take your phone out today, and I want you to take some notes. If you didn't know, we have an app. You can download the Crossover app, whether you have the Christian phone or the other phone, and Apple and Android, I'm not saying which is which, but you can just download the app. It's really quick, it's free, and there's a notes section in there, and you can type in your notes. If you want to take notes the old school way, that's cool. But I'm excited because last Sunday, we broke a record with the most people that ever took notes, in years, because yeah, we can give God some praise for that, because we can actually see in the back end of the app, if you're taking notes or not. We can see if you're taking notes. So you better, we don't see you exactly. We see the total number, right? So some people after first service were like, you can see if I'm taking notes or not? My device? No, it's the overall number. So let's break a record today even more, right? Take some notes today. Do something new. We always say we want something different in the beginning of the year, right? It's still January. We'll do something different. Take some notes today. It'll help you remember and retain some stuff. So we got to have a mental shift. So if you're taking notes, how many of y'all are taking notes? How many of y'all are taking notes? Let's go. All my note takers, right? Even if you're at home, you can use the app as well. The first mental shift we have to do is tell the truth about time. You got to stop lying about time. You got to stop lying, because if you have a full schedule and you didn't get something done on time and your boss says, hey, Ben, where's this project? And you'll say, I didn't have time. But you're lying. You're lying, because if you're honest and you really look at it, like you just didn't manage your time properly. Because again, if you pull this out, there's a little thing on there that you could press that you can find how much screen time you had every day. Probably you had 3 hours and 29 minutes of screen time. And then if you could look and see how much Netflix and streaming and YouTube you watched every day, that's probably an hour and 45 minutes. And that right there is like 4 or 5 hours right there. And I know this is the 11:45 service, and a lot of you guys are overachievers, so it's even more than that. Right? So what about all that time? Oh, well, Pastor T, like I need to decompress it. I'm saying like you could do that. You can have some screen time, but some of y'all are doing too much. Look at somebody next to you and say you're doing too much. Like rein it in a little bit. Rein it in. I just didn't have time, but we're not being honest, y'all. Because the honest answer to tell the truth about time is I had the time, but I just didn't take it. I could have finished the project, but I just didn't. It's not impossible. I just didn't take the time. So you got to admit and tell the truth about your time, because there's some things that you shouldn't make time for, or not as much time, and there's some other things you should make time for or more time for. So I challenge you today, in your notes, there's a section that says make a list of the things that you need to make more time for. What are those things? Because we all got a list like that, right? We got a list of the things we wish we had more time for. Well, here's the truth. I'm going to tell the truth for you today, okay? You do have enough time to work out. You do. You do. Stop being lazy and making excuses. You do have enough time to work out. If you're married, you do have enough time to take your spouse on a date night regularly. If you have kids, you do have enough time to spend time with them. You do have time to clean the garage, if you have one, or the closet, or the whatever it is, right? Or your car. Some of y'all cars, is the inside is this. It's embarrassing. Come on, right? Most importantly, you do have time to spend with God. That's a big one. We say, I don't have time to pray. I don't have time to read my Bible. Like, yes, you do have time. Because if you looked at all the other hours that you did with a bunch of nonsense, wasting it, you have the time. Look at somebody next to you and say, you have time. You have time. You have just as much time as anybody else does to do these things. I know we're at different seasons of our life, and some of us seemingly have a little bit more extra time than others, but the bottom line is you do have the time. Will you take it? Will you take it? Proverbs 6:10, it says this, reminds us, a little extra sleep, a little more slumber, a little folding of the hands to rest, or I'll add a little more scrolling of your hands. Then poverty will pounce on you like a bandit. Scarcity will attack you like an armed robber. Wow, that's good. So much good stuff in the Proverbs, the book of wisdom. Here's our second mental shift. This one's going to shock some of you guys. Embrace passion and abandon balance. What? What, Pastor T? Abandon? I thought you said we're supposed to be balanced. Hold on. Walk with me a little bit for a minute. It sounds a little risky, but here's what I mean by this. Balance many times in our culture is now defined as retreat rather than advance. So when a lot of people say balance, it really means they just want to do less. I want to do less stuff. I want to work less. I want to have less commitments. I want to have less impact. I just want less. I want less. I want less. And if you want to have a meaningful life that's significant and doing what God's called you to do, you can't always be retreating. You have to be advancing in some ways. And so sometimes there might be some seasons when it might get a little unbalanced because you're passionate about stuff and it's just a season, right? Most people who accomplish significant things aren't fully balanced people. They're fully passionate people. And so a couple years back, I was in a private meeting with a pastor that's been somewhat of a mentor to me over the years. Anybody heard of Rick Warren? Yes. The guy who wrote The Purpose-Driven Life. Anybody read that book before? Some of you are like, who's that? Like, where have you been? That is the biggest selling book in the history of the world. It sold over 50 million copies. Rick Warren, by the way, was the guy that prayed for the first African-American president that we ever had, Obama's first inauguration. He was the guy who prayed for him, right? So Pastor Rick he led a big church. He just recently passed the baton a few months back. Yesterday was actually his 69th birthday. So I sent him a text last night, wishing him a happy birthday and just thanking him for the impact he's had on my life, on our church's life. And he's still doing a lot of ministry work, but he's a big global thinker. So I texted him last night, and I said, Pastor Rick, I hope you're enjoying your day, and I hope that you're dreaming of new ways to change the world. And then I put in parentheses, as usual, LOL. Because he just has like 10 new ideas every day. I talk to his like number 2 guy, and he's always like, I'm like, how you doing? He's like, I'm in the world of Rick. It's just like 10 new things every day, and it's just so much to get done, right? But, when Rwanda went through a big genocide, like him and a team went in there, and they did this thing called the Peace Plan, where they helped rebuild the country, and they got all these resources, and they distributed it through churches. And so he's this big global thinker, right? And so I'm in this meeting with him and just a couple of other leaders a couple years back, and he said, guys, I got to admit something to you. He said, I'm not very balanced. And I was like, what? Like, you've written dozens of books, you're doing all this stuff. What do you mean you're not very balanced? And he said, at times when I'm so passionate, I'm doing things, I'm not getting as much sleep. I'm on the move, I'm traveling, I'm doing all this stuff. There's seasons of balance, but there's other seasons where, man, my passion, like, I get a whole bunch of stuff done, and it's kind of up and down. It's a tension that you have to wrestle with when God's called you to do big, significant things. And so when he said that, I just felt like this sigh of relief come over me, because I know I'm not always fully balanced at times in my life. And I'm like, okay, well, that's good to hear, because here was this guy that I look up to, and I thought like he was perfect and had everything balanced. And it was like, no, it's not all about balance. It's about following God's passions that he's called you to complete. And you can't be off balance all the time. I'm going to get to that. But John Wesley said this. Here's a great quote, y'all. He said this. He said, set yourself on fire with passion, and people will come from miles around to watch you burn. That's good, right? That's good. Carey said in this book, he said, balanced people usually don't change the world. Passionate people do. Now, on the other hand, before some of y'all just be like, oh, I'm going to work 18 hours a day and go crazy. Pastor Tommy said I could. Hold on. Before you go crazy, embracing passion also means you're going to have to limit the things that you decide to do. You're going to have some balance in the passion, right? Here's a great quote by a guy named Greg McKeown. He said this. He said, you can do anything, but not everything. Amen. Let me say that again. He made it himself. He said, I can do everything. I can do anything, but not everything. So you're not called to do everything. You got to put a few things that God's called you to do, and have the best strategy to focus your time on the people and the things that matter the most. And so when you allow something into your life and into your calendar on your phone, then you need to go hard at it with passion. Right? Colossians 3:23, it says this. It says, whatever you do, work heartily as for the Lord and not for man, knowing that from the Lord you'll receive the inheritance as your reward. You are serving the Lord Christ. So that first part of the verse, it says work heartily. Heartily. It's not a word that we like use that often in our everyday culture and language today, right? Heartily. What does that mean? Heartily, it means wholeheartedly, like with your whole heart, like you are enthusiastic about it. You are passionate about it. And since God has invited us to partner with him on this amazing work of helping others and changing the world and for his purposes, that's something we can get passionate about, right? Can anybody get passionate about that? That's something to be like, okay, all right, I got to stay focused on the things that really matter, because there's so many distractions on here with YouTube and TikTok and Telegram and Instagram and all the grams and all the, oh my goodness, and we can just get off balance. And we scrolled that day for 7 hours. Some of y'all do it regularly, and it's taking you off your game of the things that are the most important. So let me dive in a little bit deeper. Kind of the key part of what we're going to talk about today with time, y'all. In this book, At Your Best, it separates our time every day into zones. And there's 3 zones. And so you have the green zone, you have the yellow zone, you have the red zone. And so the green zone is like, that's when you are like, you're locked in. You're focused, you're in your sweet spot, right? The yellow zone is kind of when you're like so-so. You're kind of like, not at your best fully, you're a little tired, but you could still get a lot of stuff done. You could be pretty productive. But your red zone, that's when you're kind of like exhausted. You're tired, like you're probably not that's when you're just gonna endlessly scroll. Or you're gonna sit on the couch like a couch potato, right? And so here's the thing, like your energy, it wanes over time. It goes up and down. Like how many of y'all know that every time of the day feels different? It hits different. You're not always like totally awake and totally like, and so we're all wired differently. So how many guys would say you are an early bird? You're a morning person. If you're a morning person, raise your hand. Okay, this is the 11:45 service. So where's all my night owls at? Where's all my night owls at? There we go, 11:45, baby. Listen, this would be the service I would go to if I wasn't pastor, right? And wasn't serving that Sunday. I would be in this service, right? So, but here's the thing. We think we got that locked in, exactly what we are. There's this guy named Daniel Pink, and he did a study and found that only 14% of people are truly morning people. And night owls, it's really only about 21%. And everybody else, 65%, is kind of in the middle, right? And so what if leveraging your time, rebranding your time, could result in far more productivity? What if that could actually like almost kind of grow your time? It's not really, but it's gonna like help you to get so much more stuff done. So, because we all have 24 hours, but they all don't feel equal, do they? And so write this down if you're taking notes, or type this in. This is really important. Most of us only have 3 to 5 hours when we're truly at our best. 3 to 5 hours when you're truly at your best. When you're alert, when you're alive, when you're focused, when the ideas are flowing, you got about 3 to 5 hours a day. Now, some of you that might be younger, it might kind of blend a little bit and be a little bit more. But, for the most part, really, and I've found that I'm pretty much at my peak. I am in my green zone, usually between 10 and 2. So in the lobby, if I'm talking to you around 2 o'clock, it's like, yo, I'm getting tired, right? No, usually you have lunch, and then after lunch, I slide into the yellow zone, right? And then maybe a little bit later in the afternoon, I get a little more energy, or in the evening, I might maybe get another hour or two in the green zone. And then as the night goes on into yellow, and then I'm fading into red. It's time to bed. And in the morning, I'm in the red. When I first wake up, I'm in the red. I'm not a morning person so much, right? So I've struggled a little bit, right? But so I've kind of figured out that is my green zone between 10 and 2. Super important. So write this down. Focus on your most important work when you're at your best, when you're in your green zone. Don't waste your green zone. But the reality is, I've realized that there was a lot of days that I was wasting my most productive time doing things that were not that important. Or I was meeting with people or doing things that it was like, wait a minute, I should have did that in another time zone because I need to be locked in during that time so I could do my best, most productive work. And so you got to learn to leverage the energy God gave you. Don't fight those patterns. Fuel them. Be strategic with your time. In H zone. And you can even be strategic with your red zone and still get some things done. Listen, making the right investments with your time can produce amazing results. Just like a lot of times you think about making the right financial investments, right? So let's play a quick money game. Y'all with me? How many people like money? Okay, it's okay. You're at church. You be honest. Some of y'all are like, yeah, I like money. Yeah, like it for the right reasons. But so let's say you had $1,000. You just did a side hustle contract. You got $1,000. It's extra money in your budget, and you're thinking wisely and for the future. Like, I want to invest that $1,000. And let's say you already have some investments in 10 different stocks. And in those 10 stocks, you've been looking at those stocks, and 8 of them are like flat. They're not really doing anything. But 2 of them are like going up like a rocket. And you've been making some extra money off of that, and you're seeing the account go up, and you're like, man, this is awesome, it's great. So you meet with your financial advisor, and you talk to him about those 2 stocks that are doing well. Say, what do you think? They're going to keep going up? And he says, yeah, man, all the indicators and those companies are healthy and strong. They're going to keep going up. And, you do some research online. You talk to some other people. You're like, man, so that $1,000 you have, where would y'all put it? Which companies would you put it in? Somebody said Apple. You put it into the 2 that are doing well, right? Help me out. Now, some of you might be a little more conservative and say, well, I'll put a little bit in some of the other 8 just to spread it out a little bit. Me, I'm a little more high risk. I'm going to put it all in those 2 companies that are killing it. Let's go, right? Let's go to the moon. But so we would obviously say, duh, that's of course we would do that with our money. We think that way with our money and our investments. Why don't we think that way with our time? We can look at the area of our best time. Why don't we invest the most important things, the most important people into that green zone? And if we could start to think like that, we can rebrand our time. And in essence, our time can become so much more productive. Listen, we all have a gifting. We all have a sweet spot. We talked about this Wednesday night at Growth Night. Your gifting, it's your sweet spot. It's what you uniquely do best. It's something that you are really good at. So my guy, Doc over there, Doc, like his sweet spot is he loves fashion. He loves designing. He loves talking about that kind of stuff. That's his sweet spot. We all have like a sweet spot, something that we're good at, that we enjoy. My guy Ben, he's a trader, so he's got a sweet spot. He knows a pair of foreign exchange currencies that he trades at 2 a.m. in the morning, and he that's his sweet spot, his spot that he just does that regularly. We all got a sweet spot. We got something that we are good at. My guy Evan back there. Evan goes out on the streets of Tampa and he regularly shares the gospel, and he has a speaker. He plays sermons from Crossover. He plays Christian hip hop, and he's giving out cards and talking to people. He's at his sweet spot when he's out there ministering. Not everybody's wired to do that exactly. We all should be sharing our faith, but everybody is wired in different ways, and we have sweet spots, things that we're good at. Cheryl has been in the restaurant industry for decades and decades, and she's good at cooking and hospitality and managing, and that's her sweet spot. My guy DJ Knock One back here. Give it up for our DJ up here. Yeah. He's good at music and production and his hands. He's from the Caribbean. He does all kinds of stuff. Y'all know you Caribbean people, you got a lot of sweet spots, right? A lot of side hustles, right? But listen, when you can find your gifting and your passion and your impact, and when you can put those things together, that's your optimal green zone. So that thing that you're gifted at, that thing that you're passionate about, and then the area you can make the biggest impact, man. So think about that. Have you ever thought about that? How can I touch the most people? How can I make the biggest impact? It's gonna look different for all of us. But if we think about that, man, we can rebrand it. Here's the problem, y'all. Most people just let days happen to them. We just let days happen to us. Listen, everybody wants a piece of your time, a piece of your rhyme. It's hard to find some peace of mind. It's a song I had back in the day. But man, there's so much stuff that's coming at us, and most people let their day happen to them. It results in disappointment, tension, unmet expectations, and important things left undone. But by leveraging your green zone, your optimal green zone, right, you can make sure that doesn't happen to you. You can rebrand your time. Listen, spending 30 minutes a day reading during your green zone, that's when you're focused, and some of y'all are like, I'm not even a reader that much, or audiobook or whatever, but doing that when you're at your best in your green zone, if you do that every day for 30 minutes, that's gonna have amazing results. That's gonna compound interest over time, or strategizing or planning or writing or whatever some of those things are. It's gonna make a huge, huge difference as you work on your skill. You gotta think about what are the 20% of things that you do that produce 80% of the results? Because we all have that, right? There's just 20% of things that produce most of the results. That's going to help you rebrand your time. Here's an interesting fact I read on page 134 of this book. It says this, it says, researchers have discovered that it takes the average person almost 25 minutes to refocus after a single distraction. Wow. So we get distracted all the time, don't we? Turn the notifications off. Like, focus. We've been talking about Nehemiah during the series and how he rebuilt the walls of Jerusalem and rebranded the people of God and gave them hope and helped them change. And when he was in that process, he protected his time from distractions. There were some people that wanted to slow him down, wanted to stop the rebuilding. Nehemiah chapter 6, it says this. It says, so Sanballat and Geshem, they sent a message asking me, they texted him, to meet with them at one of the villages in the plains of Ono. You know what Nehemiah said? Oh no, I ain't going. Nehemiah said, but I realized they were plotting to harm me, so I replied by sending this text message to them. I am engaged in a great work. I am in my green zone. I can't come. Why should I stop working to come and meet with you? 4 times. How many times? 4 times. They tried to distract him and send the same message, and each time he gave the same reply. What can we learn from that, y'all? Nehemiah protected his time. He wasn't going to let anybody distract him. He wasn't going to let anybody take him off his game or slow down his project from what God had called him to do. He rebranded his time. He protected it, and he stayed focused. I want to ask you to stand with me today, and we're going to close our last couple of minutes of time together. I went a little shorter today so we could do this at the end. And we're going to worship for just a couple of minutes. Many times when we worship, God supernaturally does something in us and speaks to us in new ways. So I want you to take these last couple minutes, this last bit of time in our service together today. And I want you to ask God, how can I do better with my time? What are some things I need to rearrange in 2023? Because I want different, but I realize I have to do some things differently and rearrange them. I want to invite our prayer team and our staff and leaders to come down front. And if you're here today and you want to get prayed for, if you've got some things going on, if you've got some issues, if you've even got some things with your time in specific, we want to pray for you. We want to invite you to just come down as we're singing together, as we're worshiping together. And we're going to take a few minutes and do that. And then when we're done, we're going to do a closing prayer together. So just give God a few minutes of your time.